Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my thoughts on Universal FanFest Nights. This is just launched at Universal Studios Hollywood, and I attended opening night. This is a brand new limited time event, and since it was announced, I think a lot of us who cover theme parks, our kind of shorthand has been to describe it as a spring version of Halloween Horror Nights, which has been tremendously successful, obviously, for many years. Not to say that this is a horror-oriented event, but just as far as, bringing in a passionate fan base with a bunch of properties, many of which are not under the Universal umbrella, but that are being licensed to be part of this. Going to opening night, I found it to be a really fun time. There were kinks to be worked out, as I think you'd expect with something like this that's brand new, and I think some of these problems can be addressed in the long term as far as if this comes back. I think there's some, maybe tweaks they might make, but there's some other things that I think could just be adjusted as they go along in the next few weeks, and I am curious to see if some of those do occur. Of course, a huge factor in how appealing something like FanFest Nights will be to anyone is how much do you care about the properties that are included. And for me, there was one that made it an absolute must to attend, to try, which is Back to the Future. And, that mileage will vary for everyone. I'm looking at the list of things that are there about, am I a diehard giant fan of this thing that I need to be there? Die Hard is not included at FanFest Nights. That's a Disney property. But yeah, for me, it was Back to the Future, and I was very hopeful with what they were going to do with it, and I was very, very happy with the result. I think what they've done here is really special. Of course, they have this benefit of having the actual sets of Back to the Future on the back lot. And if you take the studio tour, you get to see them, and that's really cool, right? Iconic part of film history. They've been used in a million other projects, but Back to the Future, I think, is now the thing that is most identified with Courthouse Square, as it's called. And you see there the clock tower, even if the clock tower is not always on that building, you recognize it all immediately. But so first and foremost, to get to walk around that's great. But then they've made it into 1955 Hill Valley. And then they've gotten all these performers to play the characters from the film. And I think these performers are great. And it is really cool to get to both interact with them in character.
Hey, Biff, have you seen George McFly?
No, I haven't, but I did take his lunch money a bit ago, so going well.
But then also see them recreating moments from the film, sort of key iconic moments, with a tweak. Do not go in expecting it to be exactly what you remember. It can't be. First of all, it's all outside, so some adjustments have to be made. But I think it all works really well. It's funny watching it all play out. I actually thought about Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser a bit, which was something I really enjoyed. I know it had a lot of fatal flaws about it, but I also think it was really impressive, and there were things about it that I thought would be influential going forward. And the way I think that resonates here is because there are storylines. The characters are playing out the movie, but sometimes concurrently. So you can choose to follow what's happening with these characters who go down one street, and then you can stay with other characters here, and you'll see different things happening. But the cool thing is here, obviously it's a much more compacted amount of time, but it cycles through. The storyline of the movie will basically cycle through Enchantment Under the Sea dance being the culmination, and then you can stick around if you want. They will not force you to leave. Unlike, say, the Terror Tram at Horror Nights, where it's like you have to keep going, have to keep moving. You can just stay as long as you want. If you want to spend the whole night in Hill Valley, you can, and watch the story over and over. It's kind of funny because, of course, they cycle through the different performers. So we saw multiple Georges, multiple Martys. We watched the whole thing twice, and maybe we saw a little bit of another one of the story start over again. But yeah, it's really interesting that way because, say, the first time we did it, we stuck with the Enchantment Under the Sea dance start to finish. But then we heard people cheering, and we realized, there's a key moment involving Biff, Lorraine, and George that happened during the dance. I bet we missed that. Guess what? We were right. So the second time we managed to see that moment. We stayed away from the dance. We stayed towards the street where we kind of heard the commotion, and we got to see that play out. So yeah, I really enjoy how they did this. I think, all the performers really invest in it, and there's, crowd involvement is encouraged as far as like if George might need a little cheering on, a little encouragement, you can help give him extra encouragement. And then, yeah, you get to talk to all the characters. So I really can't say enough about that. If you are a Back to the Future fan, and there's plenty of other Back to the Future fans, I think you have to go to this if you are able. If you are geographically in the vicinity, this would really make this a must for me to attend Universal Fan Fest nights, because it's just something very special. When I went to Warner Brothers to do their tour in December, it was during the holidays, where they do a Gilmore Girls experience where you walk around those sets. I've never watched Gilmore Girls. I know, one day I will. But my in-laws all had, and so they were freaking out about it. But even though I never watched it, I still thought, wow, this is really cool. Like, we're walking around these sets, and you're able to kind of see this recreation of this very important show to people. And I just thought it was really well done without having seen the show. Now, this was Universal doing a version of that with a movie that I've seen a million times. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And I thought about possibilities like, oh, well, they did 1955. Could they do 1985? They certainly can. 2015, as much as I'd love them to do it, I realized would be a little extra step as far as changing the sets a little more dramatically. But yeah, who knows? In success, if this thing, goes the distance, who knows what the future holds. Doc Brown. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. As for the rest at Universal Fan Fest nights, the two properties I think kind of end up feeling the most like Horror Nights experiences when you do them are Star Trek and Dungeons and Dragons. That's really mainly, though, because they use spaces that Horror Nights always uses that you will find very familiar. Star Trek, for instance, is in the old Walking Dead permanent attraction that wasn't permanent. And Dungeons & Dragons is in the space behind Transformers The Ride that's been used as a Horror Nights house for a few years. So, familiar spaces, familiar cues, but instead of being kind of pushed through, when you're doing a Horror Nights maze, you need to keep walking. There's scares happening along the way. Here it's a story with a lot of performers who bring you room to room, and you stop in each room and you get more of the story told to you.
Oh, just stand by and please don't touch anything. We're engineers. We'll figure this out. The tour group should not be in here.
Doesn't matter, they're here now.
So it is a much more sort of, stick around and kind of soak it in for a bit. Then you do have to move to the next room, but you get a little more time to investigate, see things. There's a lot of, in the Dungeons and Dragons one, I was really impressed by all the props and different elements that were all through there. I have not played D&D. I mostly know D&D from adaptations, but I still thought, wow, they've put a lot in here, and it felt like, just packed with Easter eggs. They're both fun experiences, but I had to geek out the most personally standing on the actual bridge of the Enterprise D. This was the set that was built for Star Trek Picard. It has been moved to Universal for this event. I do think the seams show a little bit more doing these experiences than at Horror Nights, because, it's more brightly lit than Horror Nights is, and you're standing in the same spot longer, and you have more of a chance to kind of look around. And so you might notice, say, the top of the Enterprise bridge is just open, and you can see, the building above it. Yes, I wish there was something there to kind of better immerse you. I also know that this is a pretty short-term event, running less than a month, so I can be a bit more forgiving and wonder again in the long term going forward if they keep doing this, maybe that will be something where they'd be able to maybe close up things like that a bit more. But I don't think it ruins the experience. You still can kind of really have fun being like, oh, I'm in this little Star Trek story, and having this experience of going from a few different rooms in the Enterprise, and I did enjoy that. Like I mentioned, I don't know D&D nearly as well as Trek outside of adaptations and the fact that Stranger Things pulls in a lot. But I did think it was very enjoyable what they did here. The performers were great.
Only the skilled can awaken the magic orb. You wizard, gently touch it and check if it answers you. Oh, you acquired the ability.
And I very much appreciated the sense of humor they put into it, which felt influenced by Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
This looks like a puzzle. Why would there be a puzzle here, Edie?
Maybe if we solve it, a door will unlock, unless you have a better way out.
I always have a better way. My cleric friends, can we get some dancing lights in here? Oh, you're quick-witted, yeah!
And I'm just going to assume it is, mostly because I love that movie. So I'd like to think that even though this is not the storyline and not the characters from Honor Among Thieves, that maybe it had a little bit of an influence here. And come on, how great is that Beholder designed by Jim Henson's Creature Shop? Seeing that thing moving around in front of you, I mean, come on. Are you not entertained? The answer is yes. Yes, you are entertained. Now, here's where I have to say, I'm not into anime at all. And so having One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen, am I saying that even remotely correctly? Having them there was not going to be innately exciting to me. I'm sorry. But obviously, anime is huge, and people were psyched to have these shows there. One Piece is interesting because it was basically just a row of photo ops. So at first, me, being someone who doesn't even know One Piece really, was kind of being snobby about it, but also being like, well, is that enough? That seems kind of slight, just photo ops. But then I kind of realized how much, say when I'm at Avengers Campus, and it's a day when you do have a lot of characters. Sometimes there's not a lot. But some days you go around and there's a bunch of characters there. And that can be just really great and fun in and of itself. Because if you love this world and you love these characters, like, hey, there's that guy, and there's that guy, and there's that guy. So I could see why, for One Piece, this was a draw. Also, as someone who doesn't know this show at all, and also just thinks in theme parks in 2025, you wouldn't usually see this. It was funny to see this dude with his cigarette. I guess it's a pretty important part of his character. I'm just going to assume so. And then Jujutsu Kaisen uses the DreamWorks Theater, where the Kung Fu Panda show usually is. This one actually really impressed me because it was an original piece of animation that made full use of the side screens that are in that theater. I thought it looked really cool. I didn't know anything about any of these characters, but I saw that they all have finishing moves, and that was exciting. And yes, it's funny to hear all the fans around me cheer for Toto? Was that the character's name? Toto? I don't know. That dude is jacked, though. So whatever Toto's doing, he's doing it well. And then there are the Harry Potter and Nintendo portions, which are taking the lands that always exist at Universal Hollywood and expanding upon them or adding some special elements for this event. With Nintendo, I can't tell you much. I can't show you much because I didn't see it. I know the big thing here is Yoshi, the meet and greet, is introduced for the first time. Never got to see the guy. Would show you some video of him here, except that it turns out that they closed Super Nintendo World at midnight, even though the park was open to 2 a.m. for this event. I didn't know that, so we walked up at like 12:15 in the morning, and there was no Yoshi for us. So sorry about that. We did go through the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. I need to pause here, though, for a moment just to say, yeah, J.K. Rowling and all the really harmful rhetoric and hate she has directed towards the trans community has understandably led to a lot of people wanting to just not engage with Harry Potter or anything about it anymore, and certainly not help give her more money. And I completely understand that. It's weird with something like this where you might be buying a ticket to an event or just going to Universal Studios, and so you might be, experiencing this stuff there, but I still understand that mileage will vary about how much you want to engage with that at all. That being said, the Niffler's cute. The Niffler is always cute. We had a great performer playing this postal worker that's accompanying him and kind of lamenting that he's popped up on her cart. And then the new projection show. I think they've done a really good job with projection shows on the Hogwarts Castle at Universal, and this is a really good one. This might be the best one yet, taking you through a school year, and it has kind of this randomized ending where a different house can win the most points for the year. So that is a fun element. Why does it have to be weird to talk about Harry Potter? Come on, J.K. Rowling. Jesus. All right. On the food and drink side, unfortunately just didn't have the time and the empty stomach to try Quarks or 10 Forward, the two Star Trek establishments. Definitely want to do that on a return trip. We did go to Mel's, which is currently an all Back to the Future themed menu. I very much enjoyed my flux capacitor patty melt. However, I do lament the fact that they were out of the out-of-time cookie. Come on, guys. Gotta have those cookies. And I will say one complaint here is that the restaurant was very understaffed, and I saw other complaints about the eateries in general needing more people at an event like this. It wasn't that crowded. I'll get back to that in a moment. The overall event, it's certainly not as crowded as Horror Nights gets, but it did seem like those eateries needed more people just behind the counter. And while I'm filing a couple of complaints or, giving a few notes here, I will say that at Back to the Future, as wonderful as all was, the placement of the performers to speakers or the volume of those speakers, it lessened the impact a couple of times when you're watching the characters recreate these key moments from the movie The big example of that was Doc and Marty here, because the 1950s music playing really drowned out almost anything they were saying, even relatively close by.
Wait a minute. 1985? How long have you been here in 1955?
That is an example of something that I think can be fixed, while the event is going, and I do hope to see an adjustment there. Overall, though, I really felt Universal FanFest Nights got off to a pretty great start. It was really fun. As mentioned, the capacity was surprisingly low. I don't know if I mentioned, it was sold out. It was sold out, and yet it still felt, very easy to negotiate, especially versus Horror Nights. I wonder if that'll stay the same, or if, because it was both night one in general, but also it was media night, they mix, opening night with media night. That's something to do with Horror Nights too. But here especially, one of the only times we kind of got slowed down was the wait to get into Star Trek, because there were a lot of people with big actual, camera equipment, unlike myself, and they would need time to get in there. So I wonder if they were holding back capacity on opening night for that, and maybe that they'll increase it going forward. But unless they change it completely dramatically, I felt like this was very manageable, and we were very happy as far as, wait times. Most of the time it was around 15 minutes. There were sometimes it was as low as 5 minutes, and a couple, I think early in the night when people kind of rushed to a couple things, it was more like 25 minutes, half hour. But if you know Horror Nights, you've seen much, much worse than that. And, I feel like if it's down to the ticket price, look, it's $74 here to get a ticket to FanFest Nights, the basic ticket. I would say if they stick to this, and this is where I want to be a little careful, because what if I say this and then they increase capacity, 300%. I don't think they're going to do that. But based on what I saw opening night, I don't think you need to spend that $100 to get the Express Pass, the extra 100. Now, this is completely the opposite of what I say for Horror Nights, where I kind of say, hey, if you really want to enjoy everything, if you want to make sure you're seeing everything, you should get that Express Pass. With this, it felt like very manageable, that you could just buy the basic ticket and you could see everything. Isn't that a novel idea in 2025 for a theme park? Buy a regular ticket and see all the things you want to see. That was great. And then, all the regular rides too, which obviously is this extra bonus. Horror Nights has this too, but also the Disney events. This is like a big sort of extra selling point of the fact that, meet these characters and have these fun photo ops, but also if you just want to go on the rides with really low wait times, this is when you do it. Certainly the case here at FanFest Nights. We didn't do the rides, but the Mummy, things we were looking at, 5 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes for most of the night for a lot of them. Maybe, again, half hour seemed to be where things would be at their absolute maximum from what I saw. And I have no idea if, in a couple weeks it'll stay the same, or if they, start letting more people in. Again, they're kind of feeling out how this will go, I think, and kind of seeing, what the capacity can be. I would imagine no matter what, if they come back next year, they will increase capacity once they kind of feel that they know how it all operates. And I think it's smart to start smaller like this. But given this was the first time they've ever done this, and this was night one of the first time they've ever done this, very promising start. I more than a promising start, I felt, because it just feels like, they have a lot of great elements here. And if you're a big fan of one of these things, that $74, you can have sort of this special experience for this, thing you love. And then there's enough else, I think, to give you a very solid night. Plus, it's 7 p.m. till 2 a.m. So you have enough time to really enjoy it. I will say that was a big thing I noticed versus Disney, because I went to Star Wars Nights a few weeks ago and it was 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. and I felt incredibly rushed. And here you had 3 extra hours. So very much appreciated that. I hope this is a success, or deemed a success by the powers that be, because I'd love to see it come back. Of course, I'd be curious what other properties they might bring in going forward, what outside IP might happen. But I'm telling you, I hope Back to the Future becomes a recurring element, because, I just like hanging out in Hill Valley, guys.
Mayor Goldie Wilson. I like the sound of that.
And I'd love to do it again. All right. If you can like and if you can subscribe, that would be something I also like. All right, guys. I'll be back with more talking about other things. Take care.
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Terrible.